As a reminder, everyone is in silent mode because we want to get through these webinars in about 30 minutes to get you back to your day. But we do ask, if you do have questions, you can type those into the chat box, and we will address those questions in a follow-up email to everybody, because typically someone's question is beneficial to everybody in terms of what the answer might be. And so please type those questions in, and we'll address those following the webinar. And you can always reach out to your Bauer Master advisor if you have additional questions, or if you want to learn more about how we can help you implement an effective and cost-effective return-to-work program in your own business. And so sometimes a small investment in this process can provide a nice return in terms of reduced costs in your own operation, and that's what this is all about today. So over the next 3 months, we'll be talking about return to work. This is part 1 of that series, and at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Sharon, who's on the slide. Sharon's spoken on this topic many times. Sharon Poston is one of the founders of ESM Solutions, who is our go-to partner for safety and claims management. They're the best in the business, and we have been partnering with them for about a decade now, and we appreciate everything they do for us and our clients. And so it's all about driving results, and ESM helps us do that for our clients. And so Sharon, I'll hand it off to you, and thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Adam, and thanks to all of you for taking time out of your days. I know we all seem to have to do more these days with less time, so we try to keep our webinars to 30 minutes, as Adam said. So today's webinar is really an overview of your return to work program, the impact that it has on your workers' compensation risk and costs. ESM has developed this practical guide for employers to help you navigate this sometimes complex issue of job accommodation for your injured employees. We are very happy to work in partnership with Adam and with the Bauer Master Advisors. Our mission at ESM is to help employers reduce their risk and cost associated with workers' compensation. Just this past week, Kai Sim of our office saved an employer $75,000 because of the joint coverage technicality that the insurance carrier missed. So that's always great news for employers. We're always looking for ways to assist employers to reducing their costs. As Adam said, I've been in the business for about 35 years. I've worked with large and small employers to educate them about how to best manage their claims, and advocating for you, the employer, with carriers and TPAs to ensure that the best accepted practices for claims management is happening for you. This return to work program that ESM has developed is the result of many years of working with employers, defense attorneys, doctors, vocational rehabilitation experts, claims adjusters, managers, all of those, to glean the best practices for employers to follow. We've made this return to work plan a practical guide for employers to use when dealing with employees who are recovering from injury. So if I ask all of you who are listening, if you have a return to work program, you'd probably respond yes, because many employers do make an effort to accommodate their injured employees as they recover from injury. You already know it saves you money by reducing the cost of the claim, and those dollars impact the XMOD and your future workers' comp premium. It also aids the employee's recovery by keeping them mentally and emotionally engaged, while also keeping their bodies moving within the necessary limitations as they're healing. And the employee is less likely to think he needs an attorney if he's back at work. It's also more difficult to exaggerate your symptoms or have a need to work somewhere else when you're at work for 8 hours a day. And finally, by accommodating your injured employee, you are complying with the overlapping leave laws of ADA and FEHA. We'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. But by having a return to work program, you're setting the stage for a more positive result of a claim. I've always felt that this statement by ACOM, the American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, is an empowering message to employers. So I'll just read it. The fundamental reason for most lost workdays and lost jobs is not medical necessity, but the non-medical decision-making involved in the stay-at-work, return-to-work process. In other words, the employer is the most influential decision-maker when it comes to keeping your employees at work. The phrase return to work It's been around for at least 35 years that I've been in the industry. It even has its own acronym, RTW. The phrase is self-explanatory, and it sets the expectation for employees that you want them to return to be a productive team member. What can an employer do to have an employee return to work after they have been to the doctor following an injury? Well, the first step is to review the doctor's work status. Are there physical limitations? Can the employee do the job within these limitations? Or does an accommodation need to be considered? All of these steps that I'm now going to define on this slide should take place in a discussion with the injured employee. That's a requirement of FEHA and ADA, and I'll explain that in a little more detail in a few slides. And actually, our next webinar on April 28th is going to be exclusively about the interactive process. So your employee comes back from the doctor and he has a work status. So you take a look at it, and the first step is to take a look at modifying the job of the usual and customary position. Can you modify the work tasks or the work site? Can you maybe temporarily reassign certain tasks? Maybe an assisted lifting device such as a pallet jack or a team approach. So if that's not possible to modify their regular job, then the next phase is to consider an alternative job. Maybe it's just partial work hours, and that's okay. You just have to notify the claims adjuster that some wage loss payments will be due. Or maybe it's a combination of tasks culled from different departments. And finally, it may be an alternative work location altogether, or transfer to a different department or location. Or maybe it includes volunteer work. There are even companies that will assist you with that, and we list them in our guide. Or maybe it's even a return or work from home, if that's possible. Here's an AMA statement that says the same thing that ACOM said in a slightly different way. I think it's an important message, so I'm going to say it again. In the final analysis, return to work decisions are always those of the patient and his or her employer. The physician's role is merely one of advisor. You, the employer, have both the right and the responsibility to consider how you and your employee will manage their recovery in incremental phases as they heal. Well, how does eliminating lost days from work impact the cost of a claim? As I mentioned earlier, injured employees heal faster physically when they remain active and emotionally when they're at work, continuing to provide value and to receive their paycheck. So no temporary disability benefits are paid when an employee is working. At a maximum temporary disability rate, an employee who is off work for the duration of the 2-year cap, that's the limit, the claim cost would be $104,000. That's just temporary disability. Then you add the cost of medical treatment, attorney's fees, and other litigation costs, and the claim costs continue to increase. Depending on the size of your payroll, one of these claims can add many points to your XMOD. When an employee is injured and off work, it's also easy for fear to develop. If I can't work, how will I pay my bills, support my family? I haven't heard from my employer, so they must not care about me. Will I be fired? This frame of mind is often captured by the attorneys advertising on daytime TV to call them to make sure that they are protected. And since we know that litigation adds dramatically to the overall claim costs that are already legislated benefits, why not you, the employer, be the one to reach out to the injured employee and assure them of their value to the company? Keeping an employee working also prevents them from exaggerating their symptoms or having a need to supplement their disability benefits by working elsewhere. All around, you increase the potential for a positive result to a claim if the employee remains working as they recover from injury. Here are a few questions for you to consider. The first one, does your company know the total cost of lost time claims? Besides just the temporary disability, what about the indirect cost of replacement of the employee, training of a new employee, loss in production time? Question 2, do you have a written return to work program that is easy to understand and follow? At the time of hire, all employees should receive a copy of your written return to work program. Then reminders can be sent out in safety follow-up newsletters or payroll stuffers, posters, other reminders. And then again, following an injury, A letter and a copy of the Return to Work program can be sent to the injured worker, and this guide contains a sample template for your written plan. The third step, what are your goals for your Return to Work program? What do you want to achieve? How do you track the savings or measure the success? We include a template spreadsheet to track the savings. I think this is an important step for management to review to ensure the value and continuity of your Return to Work program. A Return to Work program begins with evaluating the cost of lost time. One way is to review your loss runs for the last 5 years, and you can get a copy of your loss runs by calling your Master advisor, and tally how much was paid in temporary disability. You could also use your OSHA 300 log to determine the total number of lost days and use an average of, say, $100 a day of temporary disability to gauge the extent and the cost of lost days. You can use any of these or other techniques to track the cost and report this to management to validate the savings by reducing lost days. Has your written plan been approved by upper management? And are they fully supportive of the program? Showing them the cost of temporary disability paid or the potential savings might sway any objections. Have your supervisors and managers been trained on the importance of their role and their responsibilities of the program? Does each worker who is injured receive additional instructions for their responsibilities? Is the cost of lost time included in the supervisor and manager's performance review? We worked with a large electrical contractor who gave his foreman bonuses for successfully and timely completing projects. But when they realized that one large claim could make a project unprofitable, they began to include the cost of injuries under that foreman's direction as an expense. And as you can imagine, the foreman started paying closer attention to prevention and return to work options for the injured employee. In addition to assisting injured employees recuperate and reducing claim costs, by providing job accommodation, you're complying with the overlapping leave laws. In California, that's called FEHA, Fair Employment and Housing Act, and that applies to employers with 5 or more employees. And then there are the federal statutes, or ADA, American with Disabilities Act, and that applies to employers with 15 or more employees. Our ESM Return to Work Guide contains step-by-step process for this interactive process, which is a requirement for both ADA and FEHA. In our next webinar on April 28th, we're just going to talk about what are the steps of the interactive process and make sure that you are in compliance with those overlapping leave laws. This Return to Work Guide is implemented in 3 phases, and we provide a worksheet to help you track the progress of each implementation. Let's take a look briefly at the first phase of this Return to Work program. Decide what it is that you want your plan to accomplish. For example, reduce the number of lost days by 20% or by 50%. Reduce the cost of claims by 20%. Reduce your XMIDE by 15 points. We've included several worksheets to help you work through this process of identifying your goals. Then draft your corporate policy statement. Our Return to Work Guide gives you items that should be included and also gives you a sample of a 1-page policy statement that you could adjust to fit your own goals and your own culture. This should be a statement that can be clearly understood by all employees to inform them of your goal to prevent injury, and to assist in the recovery if an injury should occur. Then you draft your Return to Work management plan. We explain that should be included and then give you a sample of a 1-page document to use that will be your notice to employees. Then step 2, build your support team. This will consist of upper management, supervisors and managers, doctors and medical providers, your carrier or your third-party administrator, claims handler, and your injured employee. The guide gives you a template to help you identify and list all of these key stakeholders and their roles and responsibilities. Assign the responsibilities and train your supervisors and managers to know how to carry out their role. So when you take a look at the list of who should be involved and what their responsibilities are, you can always edit that and change that depending upon your own company's needs. Then finally, after you reach agreement with your return to work or your safety committee, whoever is helping to develop this plan, on your policy statement and your return to work plan, you attach that document to your company letterhead and you have an executive sign it. You've completed phase one. It's not that difficult when you have direction and guidance to follow. There's also a step-by-step return to work procedure to follow once an injury does occur. While it sounds like a lot, we give you samples and checklists all along the way to take each step one at a time. Developing and implementing your return to work plan can take as long as you need to have it take. Maybe you want to make it a 1 quarter, a 3-month project, or a 6-month project. You don't have to complete every step immediately. You should know what your own needs are, and you work within that schedule. Your management of your employee is the key to a successful return to work program. The doctor and the claims adjuster should work in cooperation with you to provide you with the work status, benefit payments, or recommendations of medical specialists or medical legal evaluations, all that claims information that's taking place behind the scenes. If you're not getting that from your doctor or your claims adjuster, call their manager and let them know what your expectations are. And if that doesn't work, consider finding another doctor or another adjuster. You are the one who's ultimately writing the checks, so you have the power to control the results. I mentioned earlier that an employee can feel fearful about the future and about their job following an injury. But I often talk to employers who are also fearful that they'll say the wrong thing or that they can't talk to their employee because they got an attorney. And that's not true. You can always talk to your employee about employment issues. In fact, you must talk to your employee in order to comply with the Fair Employment Housing Act leave laws. Address concerns as they arise in a straightforward manner and document your conversation to all parties. Your designated doctor or clinic is your partner and the patient's advocate in this process. Some clinics will tell you they can't give you information because of HIPAA laws. Well, that's only partially true. Workers' compensation does not fall under HIPAA, first of all. And while we always want to protect the medical privacy of employees, Labor Code 3762, it's often called the Employer Bill of Rights, states that an employer has the right to know 3 things. 1, the diagnosis, 2, the treatment plan, and 3, the work status. This allows you to plan for the employee's ability to return to gainful employment. All right, you've completed phase 1, and you've built the foundation of your program. Now you need to create job descriptions, or maybe review your existing job descriptions. Often the job descriptions only describe the desired outcome of the job or the responsibilities and duties, but a job description should also include physical capacities required to perform the job. How much sitting, walking, standing, how much lifting, and how much weight. We provide you with a resource to make job descriptions easier to develop. We recommend the California Division of Workers' Compensation job description, and we include the link to that resource. It's right there, the DWC-AD. So there is a template right there that you can use to help you define the physical capacity of your job duties. The next step of the assessment phase of your program is to create a list of TADs. TADs are temporary alternative duties that could be available within your program. Our third in a series of these return to work is going to talk more about how to develop the TAD. But here's kind of an overview. Brainstorm with your supervisors and managers to create your list of TADs that you can discuss with your injured employee and that can be submitted to the treating doctor for evaluation. Here's a template and some samples of TADs that you could use to get you started in creating your own TADs. You know, sometimes a doctor will just send a work status back that says off work. Well, that is not a work status. That is just an incentive for you to go back to the doctor and say, doctor, it's not your decision as to whether or not the person is off work. That's my decision as the employer. Your job is to help me know what limitations this employee should have during recovery. And sometimes if you send a list of activities, this was a school district that we worked with, so you can see a teaching assistant. You send the list of activities, and then the doctor can say, oh, yes, she can do that. She can, if she's sitting for no more than 45 minutes, she can stand and walk short distances. All of that is within her work restrictions, and she could do that. So you're just giving the doctor additional information to assist him or her in helping you with devising work status. All right, now you're ready to roll out your program. Phase 3 is launch. Decide how you're going to do this. An email blast to all employees, maybe an all-employee meeting, a department meeting, bulletin board postings, or maybe all of that. And do it with fanfare. Make this a positive campaign that employees will buy into. Let them know that this program is mandatory and supported by senior management. Remember, you've had your return to work plan signed off by the top executive. So the message is coming from the top that they will be participating in a return to work plan if they are injured. Then train all supervisors and managers of the importance of their role in the transitioning of an injured employee back to full health and to full-time employment. Remember to notify your team members that are outside of your organization, your doctor, your workers' comp insurance company, or your third-party administrator. Publicize the return to work plan as a benefit to employees to maintain their earning capacity as they recover from injury. We also include a step-by-step list to help you with the real-life situations of implementing your return to work plan. The steps for return to work are fairly simple, but they're not always easy. There will likely be challenges in the day-to-day implementation of your program. The Return to Work Guide will provide you with tips on how to negotiate work restrictions from uncooperative doctors that say off work. You have a choice in selecting your designated medical provider. So if you have a doctor who's not cooperating with you, shop around and select one who will work with you in your return to work goals and objectives. We even include a medical clinic evaluation checklist to help you in that assessment. Sometimes you'll have a claims adjuster who doesn't really understand the importance of their role in assisting you. Let them know about your return to work program and your expectations of notifying you of any change in work status. There are occasionally return to work obstacles. I know you've probably heard these before. I could re-injure myself. We don't have modified duty. I'd rather stay home and collect benefits. All of those things are really just obstacles that you have to overcome in negotiating and discussing your return to work plan and program with your injured employee. Well, here it is. This is what the Return to Work Guide looks like that will walk you through every stage of development and implementation. The Return to Work Guide is laid out in an easy to follow format with phases that I just described. You're ready to build a sound return to work program and to put it into practice. Now, for those of you who are more visual learners, we provide you with a flow chart of everything that I've just discussed. So you could print this out, distribute it to your safety committee or your return to work project committee for review and training. In addition, we include a spreadsheet to help you implement who, what, when, what things need to happen in the implementation of your plan. Here's a sample of the spreadsheet that you can use to track the savings in your return to work program. As I said before, I think this is an important step to report to management to ensure the continuation of the program. This example is from a real employer, Campbell Union School District in Northern California. That resulted in $169,000 in direct temporary disability savings in 1 year. This helped them to set their goals going forward. They coordinated their return to work program with an enhanced safety program so that they are having fewer injuries in addition. We work with Campbell Union School District and they continue to achieve savings in their return to work program. They also have a 4% litigation rate and the lowest workers' comp rates in Northern California schools. We're proud of the results that we've achieved together, and we thank Jim Crawford, who's the Deputy Superintendent, for his letter of recommendation. It takes work to get the program started, and then implementing and follow up once an injury occurs. But consider assigning a return to work coordinator to manage the process and to ensure compliance. Allow them the time, the training, and the resources to be successful. Measure and acknowledge your success to ensure that your return to work program is consistent and sustainable. Both you and your employee will benefit from your efforts. The question that I often get from employers is, well, how do I begin? Or, I have these restrictions, now what do I do? This guide answers those questions and will take you through the process step by step. The cost of the guide also includes 15 hours of personal consultation with our staff to answer any questions that you have along the way. So here's the order form to get you started. As Phil Knight of Nike said, just do it. I just finished reading his book, Shoe Dog. It was great, by the way. Upon purchase, you will get a link to download the Return to Work Guide immediately. This electronic guide will allow you to proceed at your own pace, and we're here to provide you with support and assistance all along the way. Well, this Return to Work Guide has proven of great value and will provide a return on investment for years to come. Our next webinar, as I mentioned, on April 18th. Oh, I'll have to check that date. I think I've been saying the 28th, but I believe that's correct. I'm sorry. It is April the 18th. Is going to just talk about the overlapping leave laws. Mostly in California, we deal with FEHA because the bar is higher than ADA, and you only have 5 employees to have to comply with FEHA. So we'll talk about how to avoid penalties in the FEHA, Fair Employment Housing Act, and how you comply with all of those laws, and how you encourage participation in the Return to Work program. That will be in our upcoming webinar. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. 9:29, we made it just within our 30 minutes. I know that was a lot to cover in a very short period of time. We intended for this to be just the overview, and the next 2 webinars coming up in April and in May will delve in a little more deeper into some of these topics that I've addressed. All right, let me see if there are any questions. We have a minute left. I don't see any here right now, but if you think of questions that have come up while you were listening, make sure that you just email to your Bauer Master Advisor or to Adam or myself, and we'll make sure that we get a response to you. We'll follow up with having this webinar available via video in addition to all of that. So let me see here. Am I at the end of my slides? Yes. Okay. Thank you very much again for joining us. We really think that this is a very important way for you to manage your workers' compensation costs, and here are the steps that will make that all work for you. Thanks for joining us. I'll sign off. Bye-bye.